hello there.
Hey!
Friends, lovers, happy Sunday. This is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. I'm Robert Nasir. This is my mate, Amy Nasir.
We're mates.
That's right.
Yar.
And you know who you are. And today is October 11th, 2020.
Wow.
The 285th day of the year. There are 81 days left until, drumroll, 2021.
That's right. Yes, I came across a fortune teller recently who told me that 2021 was going to be the best year ever.
That's right, Madame Zaza.
From the
Greenfield Village Halloween Nights program, yes. But Madame Zaza is always right, at least when she has good news for us. Mm-hmm. So it's all good. 2021, right around the corner, 81 days left. There are 75 days, therefore, until Christmas. And more importantly, 20 days until Halloween. Mm-hmm. I think we'll keep up with the Halloween decor and maybe add a few more things to it as we go.
I think so, perhaps.
We should totally post a picture of the front of the studio property, which is all decorated for Halloween.
Yes.
We're looking good out there. And on this date, October 11th, 49 years ago, Apple Records released John Lennon's single, Imagine. See, Friday, day before yesterday, was John Lennon's birthday.
Oh, yes.
And his 80th birthday, which sounds strange since he's no longer with us. But yes. And today was the anniversary of the release of Imagine, one of the most influential songs of the 20th century. Lennon began writing the song while still a member of the Beatles at a time when the band had achieved unprecedented popularity but struggled to cope with their new reality. The song's idealistic utopian lyrics were heavily influenced by Lennon's wife, conceptual artist Yoko Ono. He would later assert that the lyric and concept were straight out of Grapefruit. Grapefruit being a book of poetry by Ono. And she officially received a joint writing credit in 2017. Little late and after the fact there.
Grapefruit.
See, yeah, Grapefruit was the name of her book of poetry.
It wasn't called The Gallant Grapefruit?
The Gallant Grapefruit. Oh, like the Gallant Gallstone. We'll be talking about the Fountainhead.
Yes, we will.
Faux sure. Today is also National Coming Out Day. Mm-hmm. So be who you are.
Yes.
National Coming Out Day has been celebrated since the late 1980s. Mm-hmm. In fact, 1988, 32 years ago.
Yes.
Which is why I'm wearing a little different colors than I usually do. A quick rainbow shout out to our friends who've come out.
Of course, Jennifer and John say you look like Elton John. So there you go.
I should have kept him on, but the prescription on my rainbow glasses is a little strong. I usually wear reading glasses for the show.
I guess when you're old on your birthday, they'll be perfect.
Yes. Yes, thank you for that. Actually, it doesn't really work that way, but...
he's celebrating his birthday week this week.
That's right.
So on Friday, then that's going to be Robert Nasir Day.
That's right. Well, it's Friday, see, it's not on Sunday. Mm-hmm. If it had been on a Sunday, then I could have done... And on this day, Robert Nasir was born, but I won't be able to do that because it's on Friday. Speaking of birthdays, happy 35th birthday to Michelle Trachtenberg.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Who's this?
Who the heck is Michelle Trachtenberg?
Okay.
Michelle Trachtenberg played Dawn on the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series.
Oh, okay.
So happy birthday to that annoying little character who's now 35 years old and an accomplished actress.
Okay.
Also, happy 57th birthday to Joan Cusack.
I love Joan Cusack.
We love Joan Cusack.
I love her so much.
For several reasons, but especially High Fidelity and Grosse Pointe Blank. Grosse Pointe Blank, of course, being set in and part of it filmed just down the street from where we're at Studio Nasir.
That is very true.
We are broadcasting from Motown, so happy birthday to Joan Cusack, 57 years old. Mm-hmm. What we're listening to.
Yeah.
What have we been listening? Well, Amy just wrapped up, as we mentioned last week. She's been listening to The Fountainhead.
I've been listening, holding the book up to my ear.
That's right. It's very quiet. No, the Scott Brick Audible version is very good.
No, it's the Christopher Hurt.
Christopher Hurt.
Yeah.
See, you straightened me out there. I've been recommending the Scott Brick version. Christopher Hurt is the one you like.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, that's
Well,
okay.
there you go.
No, I thought we said
So
that
Amy's
last
been
time.
listening to the Fountainhead. We've read it on paper so many times, but
Yes.
lately she's had earphones in her ears all the time,
All the time.
and she just finished it up.
Yes, and it's really good for those people who have not read it.
Of course, the
It's
heartbreaking
really
moments
good.
get us sensitive types.
Yes, there's a sensitive part that we might reflect
We'll
on
talk about that today.
today. So
Also,
yeah.
real quick, under what we've been listening to, Amy Pickoff was on the Sean Hannity Show.
Oh, excellent.
Amy Peikoff, of course, not just famous in objectivist circles, but she's now the content officer at Parler,
Parler.
which is a free speech competitor to not just Twitter, but also Facebook and other social networking. They're more of a Twitter style in that they limit your characters to 1,000, and you can't edit posts after you post them. So they're like Twitter in that regard, but they do give you a lot more content options than Twitter does. So a bit of a Facebook thing too. In any event, Amy
Yes.
Peikoff's been doing a great job as their chief content officer and appeared on the Sean Hannity Show. I usually find Sean Hannity impossible to listen to. I don't care for his, it's just his style and his voice and his appearance and his personality and his politics. But other than that,
And every molecule that
every
is in his-
molecule of space that he occupies in metaphysical reality. But other than that, he's all right. But his segment with Amy Peikoff was really good, or rather, Amy Peikoff was very good.
Yes,
And
I'd
he
like to
and he
edit
did
that
he
out.
did pronounce her name correctly,
Good.
which not every host does. So the shortcut to that segment will be in our show notes,
Good.
so you can give that a listen.
Excellent.
And it is worth a listen. Well, I left out, it's also National Sausage Pizza Day.
Sausage, pizza.
Like that really matters.
It's pretty good.
Yes.
Sometimes you get a hankering for it.
Yeah,
and,
I don't know why I have a printout of that here. I left it out on purpose
There's an
because
actual picture on the printout of sausage pizza.
there is. And I'm like, why is that even? It's National Coming Out Day.
That's right.
This
That's
is a day
so
to
much more
encourage
important.
our friends to be who they are.
And to celebrate their courage and you know,
Yes.
having to put up with nonsense.
And if people are in difficult circumstances and it's not the right time to make that announcement, absolutely understood. This should not be a day to pressure anybody, but it is a day to celebrate. So,
John-
since this week, I'm sorry, go ahead.
John says, matters much more than pineapple pizza.
Everything matters more than pineapple pizza.
If you got ham on it, you're good.
Pineapple pizza is an oxymoron.
Or for Caton, if jalapeno peppers is on there with the pineapple, it's good.
Caton is the exception to the rule.
Yes.
I'll cut him slack. Except that he keeps telling the rest of us that this is a valid option. And on Coming Out Day, there are a lot of valid options, but I don't think pineapple pizza is one of them.
We must love Caton because love is exception making.
Love is the exception making. There you go. You can tell who's been listening to the Fountainhead.
Yes.
Since this week is my birthday week, I've been thinking a lot about myself.
Yes.
And yourself, and all of you, all of
And
your
the
selves.
fact that we all
selves,
have selves to keep integrated.
selves and selves seems like two different words. I'm thinking about yourselves, not yourselves. Somebody's going to say that's not even a word. And since that got me feeling a little self-ish,
Yes.
I decided it's a good time to pick up my copy of Ayn Rand's The Virtue of Selfishness.
Ooh.
Look at that. Second edition there, second edition printing.
It's so beat up.
It's so beat. I really shouldn't even, because it might fall apart. But we also have the latest, the 50th anniversary print. In fact, we've got a bunch of these on the shelf for loaning out in the Nasir library of all things objectivist.
We have a Nasir library. We've actually inherited many other libraries and compiled one large library.
That's right. If you're the kind of person who likes reading the Dead Tree version of these materials, and you're looking for somebody to loan from, hit us up. Especially if you're local,
That's correct.
or if you know somebody who ships cheaper than UPS, who've gotten so expensive lately. From the introduction to The Virtue of Selfishness, I'm just going to read a bit.
Okay.
The title of this book may evoke the kind of question that I hear once in a while. This is Ayn Rand. Why do you use the word selfishness to denote virtuous qualities of character when that word antagonizes so many people to whom it does not mean the things you mean? To those who ask it, my answer is, for the reason that makes you afraid of it.
Ayn Rand, she's so sassy.
She is. But there are others who would not ask the question, sensing the moral cowardice it implies, yet who are unable to formulate my actual reason, or to identify the profound moral issue involved. It is to them that I will give a more explicit answer. It is not a mere semantic issue, nor a matter of arbitrary choice. The meaning ascribed in popular usage to the word selfishness is not merely wrong. It represents a devastating intellectual package deal, which is responsible more than any other single factor for the arrested moral development of mankind. In popular usage, the word selfishness is a synonym of evil. The image it conjures is of a murderous brute who tramples over piles of corpses to achieve his own ends, who cares for no living being and pursues nothing but the gratification of the mindless whims of any immediate moment.
That's not cool.
That's not cool. Yet the exact meaning and dictionary definition of the word selfishness is concern with one's own interests.
Are interests that I have good to have?
Well, Ayn Rand goes on, this concept does not include a moral evaluation. It does not tell us whether concern with one's own interests is good or evil, nor does it tell us what constitutes man's actual interests. It is the task of ethics to answer such questions. Of course, she goes on in the book, The Virtue of Selfishness, to answer those ethical questions.
Fantastic. And does she ever answer them?
Yeah, right at the beginning with the first of the many essays that's reprinted in here, the Objectivist Ethics.
And honestly, I really think that if after you read the nonfiction, read the Fountainhead, and if you've already read it, read it again. It's so amazingly illustrative of what that means.
What it means in reality.
Yes.
Is this all floating? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. And does anybody really believe this, altruism stuff? Isn't everybody selfish? Of course, there's an essay with that title in this book.
Aha. Yeah. So
in our discussion of benevolence, so that's going back to episode number 1.
Wow.
Way back when, March 8th.
This
2020.
is before we were ultra professionals as we are now.
That's right. Yeah, we didn't have our podcast style now
That's
yet,
right.
which makes me wonder. 32 episodes from this episode, how much more what?
How much more awesome?
Who knows what
will
order
it
those
be?
words belong in? How much more awesome will we be? But that's okay. The level of awesome today is good enough. In our discussion, episode 1, on the topic of benevolence, we recommended Ellen Kenner
Yes.
and Ed Locke's book, The Selfish Path to Romance.
Yes.
And one of the
So
many
good.
things I love about The Selfish Path to Romance is the discussion about making and keeping yourself lovable and worthy of love. The first chapter, if you don't have that book already, and you probably do, but if you don't, the first chapter is available as a free download. I have the Kindle version too, but I like reading things on paper. And real quick, it includes the index, or what she calls the Selfish Path to Romance Roadmap.
Nice.
I shouldn't say she. Why do I give Ellen Kenner the credit for everything when I talk about this book? Ed
Ed
Locke
Locke.
was the co-author of the book, and Ed is amazing.
Yes.
So,
He is.
Selfish Path to Romance Roadmap, and I'm just going to mention the 4 parts of the book. Part 1 is the basics and lays the groundwork. Part 2, making yourself lovable. I love this. Chapter 5, for example, building moral character, core virtues. Chapter 6, developing genuine self-esteem. Genuine self-esteem.
Genuine self-esteem.
Chapter 7, values, appearance, and communication. Becoming a passionate valuer. Caring about your appearance, learning how to communicate.
I like the sound of that.
Now, why do I mention all that? Well, one of the funny things that comes up, and I say funny, but it's not funny, it can even be tragic, when we talk about the selfish path to romance and making yourself lovable, is the old conflict of bad boys versus nice guys in romance. And it still comes up. It came up a couple weeks ago on Facebook, and there was a long discussion because somehow it's still a thing. A book like The Selfish Path of Romance straightens that right out for you, assuming you still have anything left to learn about it. It's not that, and there's an analog for this in flipping the genders or even same sex, because we want to include that this week, and in general. But there's a reason why women like bad boys. Of course, you know this, Amy, better than I do. You're a woman. But it's obvious, and everybody should know, it's not that women like bad boys. Some women with a damaged sense of life, a sense of what efficacy looks like, might go for the bad boy because he's bad. But no, women don't want the bad boy. They want the self-assertive man, the self-assured man, the self-confident man.
Somebody with passionate values.
Somebody with passionate values, and who's looking to experience those values in the company of a lady.
Yes. Who also wants passionate values.
So why do nice guys finish last? They don't, unless they're the kind of nice guy who is only nice and hasn't learned to embrace his values, his passions. And the solution to all of that, resolving any such dichotomies or conflicts, can be found in The Selfish Path to Romance. And that's why I've recommended that book once before, and I'm recommending it again.
Yeah, and it came up when we were watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the series recently. And you've got, Buffy doesn't necessarily want Riley, she wants Angel.
That's right. Who wants to be with a nice guy, no matter how capable he is, when
Angel
you can
is a
be
nice
with
But yeah.
somebody slightly dangerous? Well, what does dangerous mean? It just means this is somebody who's going to take you out on a Friday night instead of saying, can we stay home? I don't want to go out.
Yeah, somebody who is looking to enhance life.
That's right.
Rather than just spin their wheels.
That's right. Exactly.
Yes.
But what about other people then? We obviously don't want to be with narcissists, and we don't want to be a narcissist.
Nope.
But if you really care about people, if you really have empathy, you must respect what people are. They have their own self-interest. They are individual, thinking, feeling, functioning persons. Individuals who require the freedom to exercise reason and then act in accordance with their conclusions and judgments. So I had this conversation. A friend writes, respect, I said, you have to respect what people are. Respect is kind of a vague notion rooted in subjective sentiment.
So it has no cause?
Well, it doesn't even have a definition. So I would love to know in the chat, because people are active in the chat, what your definition or your sense of what is respect. What is your definition of respect?
I just put it in there. What does respect
mean? What does
mean?
Respect mean? Yeah, John Paquette says, bad boys make things happen. I love that because I've used that expression before. You want to be somebody who makes things happen. You want to be in the world. You want your fingers to be dirty. You want dirt under your fingernails. Metaphorically, you might be doing that at a desk with a pen in your hand. But yes, make things happen. That's efficaciousness. But when they wrote to me, respect is kind of vague, that word respect. Remember, I mentioned just last week that part of my project is to rescue important concepts that have kind of vague definitions or even woo attachments.
Sometimes they're neglected, sometimes they're abused. We must rescue these concepts.
That's right. Words like tradition, which I'm always suspicious of. Words like honor, which can be misused in so many ways.
John Paquette says the verb for respect, to treat something in accordance with its identity.
Yes.
I guess respecting it, what it is.
Yes, respecting
the
its
noun,
nature.
I'm not so sure.
Yes. It's going to be a challenge. If I had a good answer, I'd be giving it to you right now. But I'm still working on it.
To give someone respect is to verb them.
It's as John says, it's to respect their nature, but it's also to respect their nature in the realm of values. John actually started an interesting conversation about politeness and manners that I'm looking forward to diving into this week.
Oh, Cynthia says respect means taking a person seriously, taking them at their word.
Well, that is certainly something you do when you respect somebody.
That goes back and ties in with the idea that it's their identity that you're acknowledging, that you're, yeah.
Yes. So when a friend writes to me, respect is kind of a vague notion, rooted in subjective sentiment. My answer to that was my interest is in bridging that gap. The gap between this reality basis and the notion of respect.
Yep.
Because I want that richness. I want a rich life with respect and passion and values, with engagement and investment. Or, as Yaron Brook talked about last week, with risk. Taking risks. Making investments.
Yep.
Getting your fingers dirty. Taking chances. Doing things. Concepts like respect, important concepts, which are prone to misuse in today's culture, I want them back. As far as I'm concerned, we, those of us who can define them and ground them and defend them compellingly, we own those concepts.
Yes.
I said this before about the objectivist community. Occasionally people will bristle against modern conflicts over things like respect, or the really sticky issues like gender versus sex, and really challenging modern developments like modern transsexualism. And I always tell people the answer isn't to say, no, 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 and, oh, that's such a small percentage, we shouldn't even address that issue. The answer is to say, we're objectivists. We have the answers. We have the answer to what to do about gendered bathrooms.
Right.
We have the answers to all of the difficult cases, and we should be jumping on them and saying yes. So with concepts like respect and tradition and honor,
Yep.
we should be the people with the answers to those. And I want those concepts. I want those in my pocket, in my arsenal.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. You know why?
Why?
Because I'm selfish as hell.
And you're kind of a bad boy making things happen.
Me so bad. Yep. Just as I won't drop fighting harassment. Just because, the modern version of harassment isn't legitimate and we should go back to being male chauvinist pigs. No. Just as I won't drop fighting harassment. You can tell this was written when that was in the news recently, but not... Anyway, and won't assume all the Me Too'ers are just malicious liberals.
Right.
Just because some are using these campaigns for their own political and ideological ends, we, the advocates of reason, our respect, say, for women and men, we own romance, including all of these issues of sexuality. We own these topics, and I will not give them up.
Well, when you promote a philosophy that advocates for reason and actually the idea that a person, a human being, is capable of reason, is capable of understanding, is capable of untangling things, these concepts like this, it's a little easier to own all of these concepts and to actually say, this is what this means. This is the appropriate way to use this concept. This is what's valid. This is what's good. And this is all the wonderful goodness and joy that comes out of all of this. So, and it goes back to values. So
yes,
it's nice.
So here's a question.
Nice.
Here's a question for you. Does anybody not already think this way? Is self-regard something we can take for granted?
So are people out there do they consider themselves selfless, and do they actually
is that even a thing?
Yeah.
Is self-sacrifice really good, virtuous, enduring to people? Or is everybody on board with self-awareness, self-improvement, self-actualization, a little Maslow for you, self-sufficiency, self-responsibility? Well, yes and no. Ask the average person, is self-sacrifice a virtue? Mm-hmm. They won't say, well, you should sacrifice all the time. But sacrifice is not just a confused topic.
Right.
Because some people think, oh, I should sacrifice for my children, but what they really mean is invest your time and energy in your children because you care more about them than the pleasures of the moment.
Right.
Ben Shapiro doesn't understand that, but most of us do.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Shapiro is famously still saying,
oh, that's true.
well, the objectivists don't have any reason not to just go with the cute chick at the bar instead of going home to their wife and family. And he says that. He actually said, but it's very tempting to say, well, besides Ben Shapiro, nobody really believes that stuff. I was looking up, quotes about, meaningful life and the virtue of selfishness.
Yep.
And I came across Daniel Dennett, who is a contemporary philosopher who has a lot of cachet.
Is he the one who was part of the Four Horsemen?
He was one of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Yes.
Along with Sam Harris and
Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah. And Richard Dawkins. And Daniel Dennett says, and you'll have heard this 1,000 times in other forms, find something more important than you are and dedicate your life to it. And I just want to write an email to Daniel Dennett and write that quote in the email, and it would be a quick read, because all I would say is, why?
Right. Why? And what do you mean more important than you are?
Exactly.
How is that possible?
Exactly. And the reason I put the question why isn't to say that he's wrong, but to say that he's saying it wrong.
Yeah.
Because if you find a purpose larger than yourself, let's say that you've satisfied your career aspirations and now you get your greatest pleasure by going to Africa and helping to cure malaria.
Right.
Well, the question is why?
Right.
And the answer is because you love it. You love saving lives. You love being part of this effort.
Exactly.
That's not larger than you.
Right. You could kind of abuse that term as well and say, well, Howard Rourke, he found architecture to be larger than himself, or more meaningful than himself. Well, or more important than himself.
More important is my sticking point.
Yes, more important.
If you said something larger than yourself, sure, saving 100,000 lives is bigger than me.
Right.
In a sense. But more important than me.
More important than you.
Does a man with Daniel Dennett's intelligence not understand the idea of a hierarchy of values?
Yeah.
So, does anybody take this stuff seriously? Well, Peter Singer actually gives away all of his money except what he needs to continue the life he has spreading the word of altruism. He is the most famous modern utilitarian. And he says, yeah, you really should do everything you can for others, short of starving to death. So, you got to give yourself a home and shelter. And if you're like me, you need, transportation and a way to spread the word. But he actually does it. He actually does not live like a millionaire, even though he's sold enough books that he is a millionaire, or could be.
Right, but does he do the Ellsworth Chewian people and say, well, once you reach that stage of ultimate selflessness, you'll feel this wonderful feeling of euphoria and happiness.
And then you'll enter the gates of heaven.
Which is a bunch of bunk.
To which Catherine Halsey asked him, but who is it that'll enter? Yes.
Stop that.
You've read The Fountainhead, right? If you haven't, get on that, my gosh.
Oh, poor Katie.
So do people take selflessness and altruism seriously? Yes, it turns out they do. And again, most of us don't, except we have to be vigilant about picking it up from the culture. That's what I believe, because that's what I see.
Excellent.
I have in my notes here. It says, we can do so much together. These are, I guess, my notes about the individual. And we can build friendships, relationships, romances, families, communities, companies, corporations, nations,
Woo!
when each of us is functioning properly.
functioning as our nature requires, as our identity requires as individuals,
But
with selfish interests.
that's right. But the source of that fire, our consciousness, our I,
Yes. That is capital I, the letter.
yes, the source of all of that, friendships, relationships, romances, families, communities, companies, corporations, nations, the source of that is the fire, the consciousness, the I. There is no social fire. The fire is in each of us individually. Ayn Rand said there is no, or had Howard Rourke say, there is no collective stomach.
Right.
We can't all eat a meal together. But that's a metaphor. There is no social fire. There is no social consciousness. There is no social volition. The fire is in each of us individually. Each of us thinks, or not, acts, or not. I, you, the individual, pursues, protects, loves, hates, embraces, refuses, feels, thinks, sees, is aware. Initially, first and foremost, alone. Sometimes alone is a beautiful word.
Yes.
Can't believe I wrote that.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful birthday writing.
That's right. But usually when I share that, it's I'm talking politics. That's why socialism doesn't work, is because you can't have top-down control when the unit of value and the unit of production and the unit of thinking and the unit of feeling and loving and hating and all the things is the individual. That is the source of value.
Linda Cordair of Cordair.com, Quint Cordair Fine Gallery.
Cordair.
Go there and get some inspiration for yourself. She says, my weekly inspiration, to be more selfish.
Well,
yes.
Linda's in the business of providing inspiration, so
yes,
she knows more about it than most of us.
And she probably needs that refueling every so often, even
That's right.
though she's surrounded by all the fuel.
We all do. Yes. If self-sacrifice is a virtue and selfishness is a vice, why do we praise self-awareness, self-improvement, self-responsibility, self-actualization, while condemning self-deception, self-alienation, and self-destruction? And the hint for that is that Aristotle regarded pride as the crown of the virtues. And he was profoundly right to do so.
Yes.
Yes, a mess has been made of the topic, and not by accident. The mess arises out of a slew of contradictions inherent in the advocacy of self-sacrifice as a virtue. Yes, mindless self-destruction is as selfless as self-denial or self-sacrifice. It's common to think that it's better to sacrifice your future happiness to feed the poor than to sacrifice your future happiness by engaging in crime, avarice, drunkenness, or mindless whim. But that's a false alternative. Whether sacrificing your life to others or sacrificing your long-range happiness to vice, these two belong in the same category. Selflessness. Yaron Brook's been talking about that. He's been looking for a good word to describe that kind of selflessness, the Bernie Madoff, the criminal, the archetype of quote-unquote selfishness.
Right.
But I'm not sure that you really need a word for it. All you need is, because it only took me one sentence to make it clear, all you need to do is remember it's a false alternative. In reality, the alternative is sacrifices or no sacrifices.
Yes, and you'll see if you read the Fountainhead for the first time or again in the character of Peter Keating.
Peter Keating.
You're going to find those sorts of traits, the same traits that you find in Bernie Madoff and all of those other creeps.
Yeah, and we know what happened to him. Are we going to read what happened to him?
Yeah, I can.
Can you get through it without getting choked up?
I can. I will
Okay.
try. This is the last scene in the Fountainhead when Peter and Katie go to lunch.
So a lot of people, and we've talked about this before, will protest that, sure, self-sacrifice makes you miserable, but selfishness, and I don't mean principled selfishness like we're talking about here, but just, the criminal, the mobster. Well, how do you know the mobster is not a happy person if he's getting away with it? How do you know living in this way of sacrificing everybody to your own vices doesn't make you happy?
Yeah.
How do you know self-sacrifice doesn't make you happy? You give up your ideals. Well, you can read.
So I'll start here in the kind of in the middle of a paragraph here. And he's talking to Kate. Peter is talking to Katie. Katie Peter wanted to marry Katie.
But spoiler alert.
Yeah. So
If you haven't read The Fountainhead yet and you don't want spoilers,
but
turn the volume down for 1
didn't.
minute.
And instead he married Dominique.
And worse.
And he said to Katie, finally, after she has been completely conditioned to become this soulless social worker.
Oh yeah, and she's fallen for it. She's like, oh, Peter, yeah.
And she doesn't even give him the identification or the respect, perhaps, to even be angry with him.
No. She's like, oh, I was foolish and young, and sure, yeah, I cried a lot, but I know better now.
And it's so sad, even though Peter Keating is a total creep. It's very sad to see him become more and more soulless, and then to identify with Katie that he wanted to actually have a value, and he gave it up, and he says, I did hurt you, Katie, and maybe more than you know yourself, but that's not my worst guilt. Katie, I wanted to marry you. It was the only thing I ever really wanted, and that's the sin that can't be forgiven, that I hadn't done what I wanted. It feels so dirty and pointless and monstrous as one feels about insanity, because there's no sense to it, no dignity, nothing but pain and wasted pain. Katie, why do they always teach us that it's easy and evil to do what we want, and that we need discipline to restrain ourselves? It's the hardest thing in the world to do what we want. And it takes the greatest kind of courage. I mean, what we really want. And as I wanted to marry you, and he goes on, and she's just saying things like,
oh, Peter, what you're saying is very ugly and selfish.
Yeah, Peter, what you're saying
But she's
is
not even
very ugly and
chastising him.
selfish.
She's dismissive about
She's
it.
just-
People are like that.
She's got this script in her head that she has repeated, that she learned from her uncle Ellsworth. And
Yeah, there's nobody there anymore.
It goes on, and he's like, Katie, let's say that this doesn't count. This now, it's past counting anyway, isn't it? This can't touch what it was like, can it, Katie? People always regret that the past is so final, that nothing can change it. But I'm glad it's so. We can't spoil it. We can think of the past, can't we? Why shouldn't we? I mean, as you said, like grown-up people, not fooling ourselves, not trying to hope, but only to look back at it. And then he goes on, do you remember when I came to your house for the first time? And he's recounting all of these wonderful moments, and he's telling her, when I'm with you, I have to be honest, I have to tell you the truth, and Katie is just, oh, I remember. And then she finally says, you're very sweet, Peter. I've always said men are the sentimentalists.
Yeah, everything she says is dismissive. It's bizarre because he's laying it out for her, and there's nobody there to receive it.
Right. And this is the moment where Peter Keating is actually honest with himself and somebody else, too. And oh, boy, what a heartbreak, and just it's giving me chills right now. So it's an interesting read, that Fountainhead book. So, whew.
Yes. Yikes.
Yep. I want Ellsworth Toohey to die at the end of the book.
Yes.
But he doesn't. He kind of does, but he doesn't.
Yes. And in a way, he kind of had to go on as he did, knocked it down to square one and defeated, but still out there. It's the J.K. Rowling principle.
What's that?
Well, you don't ever want to diminish evil in your stories. So people ask J.K. Rowling, for example, why did you kill, and then, their favorite character. I won't name any names. But, why did you kill that main character, that important person in the book? And, there are more than one. There are a lot of people who die through the course of these 7 novels. And she explained, well, if nobody important ever dies over the course of a conflict like this, then there wasn't really any conflict. There wasn't really any danger. And, she's right. If there was no fallout from the kinds of vices that are practiced by characters in a book like The Fountainhead, then you say, well, all that stuff's kind of floating, has nothing to do with actually living. But it does in reality, and so it does in the books.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking more about this in the future because I have so much more to say. But I'm going to jump right to our homework. And the reason is our homework is to revisit your value hierarchy. We talked in the past, a sort of skeleton version of a lot of the self-help seminars and goal-setting workshops, and especially, as I always recommend, Andrew Bernstein's talk on how to become an impassioned valuer.
Excellent talk. And
that is to make sure that your value hierarchy, meaning your primary goals and ideally your life's purpose, and I always say pick 2 because if you try to pick 1, you'll run into roadblocks. If you pick 2, you'll find that 1. Revisit your value hierarchy. If you haven't done it already, get a sheet of paper, write down your top 3 values, the top 3 things you want to achieve, the top 3 goals that you have, and make sure that, we could go through the whole workshop, but make sure that you are in alignment with your top values, with your goals, with your value hierarchy.
Yes.
Make sure, and assuming you've done this before, and even if you haven't, check that. It's time to check in. Make sure that your current course of action is in alignment with your values.
So check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yes. If you are in alignment, if so, praise yourself.
Praise yourself.
Praise you. I have to praise you like I should.
Yes.
If not, write down the next step you will take for any value that is out of alignment in order to get back in alignment with your goals and values. That's your homework. Revisit your value hierarchy. Check your alignment. Are you still moving in the direction of your top values? If so, praise yourself. And if not, write down the next step you will take to realign your actions with your goals and values.
I think that sounds like a good deal.
I think that's a good idea. Lord knows I need to do that because I've got 1 or 2 items that are askew.
Oh,
and,
it's askew.
So I'll be doing some straightening out this week.
Excellent.
Post-it note for the week. I actually have 2 of them. The first Post-it note I came up with just said, remember boredom. And this was when I was thinking about self-interest and self-motivation and motivated action. It's interesting to me that I haven't been bored in decades. But I remember boredom.
Yeah.
I remember especially being a teenager or a youth and being bored.
Right.
And it's strange. I have so many values that I don't have enough time and energy and money and resources to do everything that I would love to do. And I have to have a value hierarchy, otherwise the most important things won't get done. Now, there is boredom when you're doing something you have to do but don't want to do. Even then, if your values are in alignment, you can see, well, here's what I want to do to get what I want. But it's hard to feel that if you're in line at the DMV.
Yeah, or Walmart.
Or, well, yeah, well, but
And you left your phone at home.
Or if you've had to take a job temporarily
Yeah.
to get where you want in your career, but is not something you enjoy doing. So I can see there are still opportunities for boredom, but being bored in your free time,
Yeah.
Mom, there's nothing to do. It's kind of like there's nothing to eat. There's nothing to eat. Well, what it really meant was there's nothing to do that I want to do.
Well,
there's nothing to eat that I want to eat.
But boredom is a wonderful gift sometimes because it gives you the opportunity to find things that you would not have found before to do.
Now, you talked about this when you left your cell phone at home.
Yeah, I accidentally left my
I think
cell
it was
phone at
last
home.
week we talked about that.
Yeah, right. And things were just very interesting. It was really fun, actually, seeing things that you don't normally see, that you don't normally notice.
And interesting things which, like when we were kids, we thought about.
Right. And actually, that's one of the things that I most cherished from my childhood was being alone and reading in my closet or teaching my stuffed animals, math and spelling on my chalkboard. And just finding things that I would just delight in. I loved it. I loved doing these things. I loved creating these things. I loved, just being engaged with these quiet things. And it's something that you can get back in touch with if you feel like you're too much on the screen. You've got your dummy box with you all the time. I'm holding up my iPhone, which is most glorious, but...
Yeah, Amy has taken to calling her iPhone the dummy box. The way we used to call a television the idiot box.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want that to become a mindless distraction. So my Postit note does say, remember boredom, ? Just because when I look at that, I find insights pop up.
Yeah.
But I do have another longer one. If you have a big enough Postit note pad, on my little 3x5-inch one, it says, your conscience is the measure of the honesty of your selfishness. Listen to it carefully.
Conscience. That's conscience, right?
Conscience. Yes.
Conscience.
Here, I'll put that up on the screen there.
It's the measure of the honesty of your selfishness.
There, now that's up on the screen.
That's nice.
Your conscience is the measure of the honesty of your selfishness. Listen to it carefully. That's a quote by Richard Bach.
Oh, really?
Now, I have some friends who will point out that's not stated very precisely. And it's a little woo. It's a little vague.
It's a bit woo and vague.
Can't that be said better? But I don't know if it would be as effective if it was said less poetically. So I accept any criticisms anybody wants to put out there about this, but I like the quote. And I find it helpful to remind myself that my conscience, the automatic integration of my evaluations, including my evaluation of myself, is the measure of the honesty of my acting consistently with my own values.
Well, that's a good explanation. John did say, could you unvague it a bit? But I think that helped.
Well, hopefully that helped a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I haven't actually prepared to unvague it, but maybe I'll do that online later.
Yes.
But yes, your conscience, which is a thing, and Ayn Rand's even talked about it. Maybe I'll look that up.
What is that? Your self-awareness in terms of...
It's your automatic evaluation of your own moral status.
Yes.
Just like your emotions are an automatic evaluation of the value significance of a event or action.
You're so smart.
So your conscience is that same automatic integration, but of your own moral evaluation of yourself.
Oh, thank you.
So
I hope that helps, John.
If that's the measure of the honesty of your selfishness, it's funny because I think objectivists would say, well, the honesty of my selfishness?
Yeah.
Isn't that just my integrity?
Right.
And if your values are rational, then yes, that is your integrity. So your conscience is your automatic reporting on your own integrity.
John says, way good. Good.
Well, I'm glad I made that at least a little bit less unclear.
Before I go, I just want to thank Guy and Elisa for this beautiful headband.
So many goodies came in.
Came in.
Especially from Guy's family this week.
Yes.
The Halloween adventure continues.
Yes, the Halloween spooky exchange
Yes.
continues.
If you're not on Amy's Halloween exchange group, it's on Facebook. Do a search for it, and you will see pictures galore.
If you want me to send you a spooky Halloween thing through the mail, just let me know.
Yeah, Amy's
last
still
call
sending
for
out
this
Halloween
because
surprises.
I will be sending it out this week and sending several out this week.
Yeah, I mean,
Very
they're not
exciting.
surprises because you know you're getting them, but you don't know what's in them.
That's right.
Yeah, look at the drinking straw there. How
Oh,
cute
look
is
at this.
that?
This is from Guy and Elisa, and it's like a little kitty. Actually,
It's
let
a,
me see.
It's,
if you
it's a
can get
paper
contrast
paper
here. I don't
mache,
know.
not paper mache.
It's
paper.
like one of those.
What do you call that? Is there a
it's
word?
where it's like a paper honeycomb is what it is.
It's like a
Honeycomb.
kitty on a straw.
Yeah,
But it's
kitty
so
on a
cute.
straw.
See, the people on who are doing this as a podcast and not a video are like, oh, I
What
didn't
is
get to
this?
see that.
What is this?
What are they talking
Yeah,
about?
it's a really delightful
So,
Halloween straw.
Go to Facebook, get in on that, if you're not already.
Yes.
And with that said, questions, comments, suggestions can be posted on Facebook in our 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir Facebook group.
Page.
Do a search, it's there. You can find past episodes and spread the word. We're getting word spread going on, and we need more of that.
Yes, spread
Spread
that
the
word.
word about the show by
Spread that
liking and
love.
sharing on YouTube, youtube.com/Robert Nasir.
Do the like and share dance.
You can do that on Facebook too, but we're trying to get our YouTube numbers up.
Yes.
We're popular on Facebook. We're almost unknown on YouTube, so
Yes, get us known, please.
get us known.
Discover
And
us.
you can even support the show. We received a couple of very generous donations this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody. Oh my
If you want us to
goodness.
call you out, just let us know. And our regular monthly contributors are coming through for us. If you too want to support the show, patreon.com/Robert Nasir, or send me a private message if you prefer another method. And thank you for joining us.
Yes.
We hope you took selfish pleasure in today's show.
Yes, I certainly did.
Yes. And as always, we wish you, yes, you yourself, we wish you happiness. We wish you success, and we wish you love.